Welcome to Temple of Geeks Who Review, a Doctor Who-inspired podcast for fans of the long-running British science fiction television series. I'm your host, Elizabeth, aka Lady of Time Cosplay.
I'm Nate, aka Doc in the Box.
We are massive Doctor Who fans, and we're here to talk about all things Doctor Who. Throughout our series, we'll be discussing the latest episodes, the classic series, the spin-offs, and everything in between. We'll also be bringing you interviews with people who have worked in and around the series, behind-the-scenes information, and all sorts of other Doctor Who-related fun. So whether you're a longtime fan or just getting started, we'll hope you join us for the ride. And today, after we get to the news, which there wasn't a lot this week, we're going to be talking about River Song, because it has been 15 years since her first debut on the television series, which is crazy to think about.
15 years. She's all grown up.
Oh, I know. In the weirdest possible way. But yeah, so there wasn't a lot of Doctor Who news this week. I don't know if that was because they were trying to avoid competing with Spider-Man news, which there was a bit of that this week between Spider-Verse came out. They confirmed, yes, they are going to be working on Spider-Man 4. I know this isn't a Spider-Man podcast, but I think that's like my brain the last week with Spider-Verse coming out. But, you know, they said that they're working on a live-action Miles Morales. They're working on a Spider-Gwen spinoff. They're working on Spider-Man 4, or will be once the writer's strike is over. So, you know, maybe they were just trying not to compete with that. So
It's possible.
Possible, who knows? But in Doctor Who news, we have a few more details for Doctor Who Once and Future. So more details were released this week for Big Finish's ongoing 60th anniversary story, Doctor Who Once and Future. July's third installment in the series, titled A Genius for War, and written by Jonathan Morris, will feature Sylvester McCoy as the Seventh Doctor. A Genius for War will also mark the return of Terry Molloy as Davros, the creator of the Doctor's long-standing enemies, the Daleks. Ken Bones will also return as the General, reprising his role from The Day of the Doctor and Hellbent, and he's done a few other Big Finish audios as well. Beth Chalmers will also joins the cast as Commander Veclin from various other Big Finish Doctor Who audios, including Gallifrey Time War, which is one of my favorites. The synopsis for this story reads, in the midst of the Time War, the Time Lords have received a communication from Falkris, the prison moon of Skaro. Its sole inmate, Davros, wishes to make them an offer. He will help them win the Time War, but only if the Doctor comes to his rescue. Doctor Who Once and Future, A Genius for War will release this July and is available for pre-order either as a standalone story or as a bundle with the rest of the Once and Future episodes now. So that's fun. The Time War stuff is always fun. I still haven't gotten a chance to listen to any of the Once and Future stuff. I need to order it and listen to it, but the Time War stuff is always a lot of fun. Gallifrey War Room, the next one's supposed to come out, I think, either next month or in August, and there's been no information about it yet. And I'm like, ugh. So.
Speaking of Big Finish, I haven't. I know we talked about the freebies. Have we? Do you know if there's still which one's going on right now?
That's a good question. I mean, I know they switch it up every week, and usually they're ending like within a few hours of us recording the episodes on Sunday afternoon. Let's see what one it is.
Well, apparently the offer's still going on, so check out Big Finish and get your free audio downloads.
I don't know what it is currently, but I know the other week it was one of the other cult classic sci-fi ones that they do. I want to say Thunderbirds was last week, but I'm not sure.
Another thing, I don't know if you call this news, but just more like fan stuff or fan appreciation. Last week I noticed Karen Hallian, you have one of her drawings behind you with Cap and Carter.
I have several.
She had a series where the Doctor would put undisclosed, but you could tell which Doctor it was basically by the hand. Will put their hand out the TARDIS and lead, it was at the time, Disney princesses into the TARDIS. And she had done a new piece of art with, you could obviously tell is Ncuti's Doctor reaching his hand out to pull in the live action Little Mermaid. And I thought that was really cute, especially considering she had one where it was 10th Doctor pulling in animated Ariel. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that was the original Ariel, and the 10th Doctor one was my phone case for the longest time. But now my phone case is Tinkerbell and the TARDIS.
Tinkerbell. Oh, that's cute.
I love her stuff. I have so many of her t-shirts. It is slightly embarrassing possibly, but yeah, I've got a lot of her artwork as well. So. But yeah, so River Song, 15 years since Silence in the Library came out, which I wasn't watching the show like as it came out at the time, but that's still, I mean, that's crazy. She's such an iconic character, and I love her. And I don't know, maybe we should just talk about like what did you think of River the first time you saw her in an episode?
Confused?
Yeah.
Well, I think everyone was probably confused because your first introduction to her is with the 10th Doctor, and she's saying that that's the youngest she's ever witnessed the Doctor. So you're assuming at the time that she is a long standing character, which in terms of years of the Doctor's life, she is. But when you get to the end of the story, as far as regenerations, it wasn't as many as I had thought or hopes for. But then again, I know you know more of the Big Finish universe where they dive into all of that. And yeah, so I'd say very confusing at first because the science in the library is very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, as I've mentioned on the podcast before, and to like anybody who asked me about like how I got into Doctor Who, I saw Silence in the Library on TV like years before I got into the show, not even realizing it was Doctor Who at the time. Didn't realize that I had seen the episode until I was going through watching on Netflix when Doctor Who was still on Netflix, and got to the episode and I was like, I have seen this before. I know how this episode ends. What, kind of thing. But I remember even when I was kind of, watching the episode when I was supposed to be doing my homework kind of thing, I remember thinking, that's such an interesting concept when you've got time travel. Yeah, people are going to meet out of order, especially if they're both time travelers, which I can't quite remember if we knew for sure that River was a time traveler in that episode. I mean, we definitely found that out later in her story, but I remember thinking it was such a cool and interesting concept. As far as I'm aware, I think what I can remember is that Stephen Moffat was very inspired by the book The Time Traveler's Wife, which of course he, in recent years was able to do a TV adaptation of. I haven't watched it yet, but it also got canceled, which is sad. So, HBO.
That's really sad on my part on a personal level, mainly because I have a friend, Josh LeCount, who actually got to work on that show. He played a small piece in that show, and I haven't gotten around to watching it yet, but it was, he got to be in it, and I actually don't know if it made the cut or not, but cool. On that note, I was like, oh, that's really cool. You gotta work on something that Moffat did, and I'm jealous. Go you.
Yeah, I know. I gotta watch it. I just haven't yet. Yeah, she's. I remember thinking, she was such a cool character. Like, that's such an interesting concept to bring in to a time travel thing. Obviously he was inspired by The Time Traveler's Wife, but it's always fun when people are able to find different angles to attack time travel from in Doctor Who, especially when it is such a long running show. I mean, at the time the show was like 40 something at that point, but still, it's a cool concept. She's a really cool character. I was really excited when she popped up again, though I will. Is a little tiny story, extra little tiny story about River Song and my kind of interaction with her as the fandom. So I am a Tumblr girl. Nobody is going to get my URL out of me. Not that I post anything bad or extra weird, but just it's its own space, kind of thing. But I remember when I was first looking at Tumblr, I hadn't watched Doctor Who yet when I first joined Tumblr, because I had joined Tumblr of all things for Phantom of the Opera fandom. Whatever. But one of the things that people used to do on Tumblr is they'd be like, okay, here's a list of things. Show me a GIF of your reaction to these set of things when you were watching the show. And I remember I misread one of the prompts for the Doctor Who one, and I thought I remembered reading, show me your reaction when you found out that Amy was River Song. So I went into the show having that in the back of my mind, and it wasn't until much later that I realized I'd read it wrong.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, I read that. I think probably I missed a few words because I probably saw it and was probably getting ready to watch the show and didn't want spoilers, and so I kind of scrolled fast, but I still caught that. But it probably was actually something about like when you found out that Amy was River's mom or something like that. But I was like, when I realized that was not the direction the show was going, I was like, oh, yeah, that didn't make sense anyway.
I think one of my favorite things about the story with River, or the concept of River, oddly enough, isn't. I mean, I like River, but the thing I think I loved the most was the diary. The fact, especially when they get, she got the diary. She got the diary.
I made it too.
You made it?
I did.
Oh.
Yes. Let me find. I should name drop the YouTube channel that I figured out that I did this from, because they actually specifically had a tutorial for River's diary on how to do this in addition to bookbinding.
Oh, so it was like from scratch.
Yeah. Yes. So Sea Lemon bookbinding on YouTube. Both, I believe she had a tutorial on how to do the TARDIS look of that, and she has a bunch of bookbinding tutorials as well, and so that's how I made that. And though I did add in the part, I don't have anything in the diary. Like, I keep thinking like, oh, I should get people to sign it, but also I'm terrified of them losing it. Yeah, I followed her tutorial. The only change that I made is that before I sewed the pages in, I dyed them all with tea bags and crumpled them up and then let them dry. But yes, diary. Sorry, go on.
No worries. Yeah, the concept of the diary I really enjoyed, especially once you got into the actual swing of 11 and River going around, like every time they see each other. Oh, let's see where we meet up in the diary. The whole thing of where it was off limits for the Doctor as well, and the temptation of him wanting to see it but not at the same time.
It's another really clever way that they kind of established their connection really, really early on in that episode too, where, she pulls out this diary, and it's not just any book. It is a TARDIS blue diary that is, old and full of information. And I can picture 10 just sitting there, like, looking at her, like, what is going on kind of thing. And it's such, like, River Song. The concepts that Stephen Moffat put into River Song are like some of my favorite things in Doctor Who. Just especially the scene in Impossible Astronaut before everything kind of goes off the rails kind of thing, in a good way, when they both have their diaries out, check-in, which I think is very sweet.
I like the things when you watch things after knowing the whole story and then you start putting things together, like I think the scene that stands out to me the most with River, when you start thinking about her story in order, is when she's at the beginning of A Good Man Goes to War, when she's dancing and going back to her prison cell, and Rory comes up in his Centurion outfit. Yeah. That's almost, if I'm correct, because I know everything goes wibbly wobbly with her. If I'm correct, I believe that's the first time she sees Rory since Angels Take Manhattan.
It could depend on how much, because she does talk in Angels Take Manhattan that she's not in prison anymore. But like you said, with how stuff kind of shuffles around, who knows? Because maybe that's also the first time she's seen her dad since she was born, kind of thing too, or since the wedding, or maybe, however. I don't know. I remember
her saying she wasn't in prison anymore. But I mean, then again, to River, I'm not in prison anymore, could just mean I'm not in my cell.
Yeah, I think she has a line. It's been a while since I watched that episode, because it's a very sad episode, and I don't always like rewatching sad episodes. Yeah, so the Doctor says, how's prison? She says, I was pardoned ages ago, and it's Professor Song to you. Pardoned? Turns out the person I killed never existed in the first place. Apparently there's no record of him. It's almost as if someone's gone around deleting him from every database in the universe. So, but, yeah, so... I don't know, but it's definitely a moment for her where she's like, but I also think it's funny because she's so clearly flirting with who she thinks is a guard. And then she's like, oh, no, that's my dad. Whoops. She's like, oh, whoops. Should not have said that.
Awkward.
That's awkward. Hey.
I mean, not just that. I mean, that's her dad.
Yeah.
She accidentally is flirting with her dad. And then... because that was just how she was raised or trained. She grew up with her dad.
I just, there's so many layers to her story. The first time that I rewatched Science and Library Force of the Dead after kind of her story concluded with The Husbands of River Song, which is also one of my favorite episodes. Like, just the little touches. I mean, everybody kind of always knew that we were going to hopefully eventually, not hopefully, but we all kind of figured that if they were going to end River's story, we would see the Singing Towers of Jerusalem. We would see that date night and everything. It's even hinted at in one of the mini episodes that they did online, but just even other tiny little things, even stuff that like you couldn't have possibly accounted for. I think I talked about this in our first episode too, where she kind of like touches, on Ten's chest, right where the bow tie would have been for her to fix, because she does that a lot to Eleven, or, just there's so many little tiny details that I'm like, I don't know what order Stephen Moffat came up with her story in, but whatever order he did, it's genius, because he had to write the ending first and then work out how to put the other things in. Not that we saw everything. I mean, I know the Picnic at Asgard, they touched on a little bit in one of the novels, and then they have the Big Finish stuff with Ten and River. So yes, she has seen Ten before, but yes, much older than he is in that episode. And it's just, I don't know. Yeah, I love River a lot. She's such a cool character. I'm going to say that a lot this episode. So I'm curious, because I have my own story about how I was watching season 6, but like, when you watch season 6, like, what were your like reactions to all of the revelations that came in that season?
Just kind of thoroughly confused, to be honest. I mean, because you have this child that's in a spacesuit. Well, first you're going through Amy, she's having a baby, and then the baby explodes into goo, and the baby's not actually there, which traumatized my child, by the way. Yeah, when you have an infant sitting there, and all of a sudden just you hear this pop or whatever, and there's a pile of flesh goo on the ground. That didn't go over well with a 6 or 7 year old child at the time.
No, I can imagine.
So that messed him up for a little bit. But then you have the little girl in the astronaut mecha, whatever you want to call it, because it's kind of controlling her, going into her regenerating in the middle of the street. And then the thought that I was trying to remember is, I kind of wish, in retrospect, after all these years, I kind of wish we had more story or more breadcrumbing with Mel. Like, having Mel either be like a known friend, even if not a major part, like maybe just a known friend to like the Pawns or something like that. And then have that revelation that Mel turns into River. Mel was the girl, Mel is River. And just, I kind of wish we did have more of that. But then just River being in the suit again later, but she was trained to kill the Doctor, but she wasn't it was more like she was forced to do it rather than it was her actually doing it.
She was really trying to break her programming, for lack of a better word. But I watched season 6 though. So like I said, when I first watched the show, it was all still on Netflix, but when I got to the end of season 5, season 6 had aired, but it wasn't on Netflix yet. But I was like, I don't want to wait to see the story, so I bought it on iTunes, and I watched all except the last episode within 24 hours, which was an experience for sure. I mean, that's kind of, what binge watching is, but watching all of season 6 within 24 hours, going to bed, and then watching The Wedding of River Song the next day. Like, I don't know how people, because there was a gap in there too, wasn't there? I think they had like a break over the summer when it was initially airing. It looks like A Good Man Goes to War aired June 4th, and Let's Kill Hitler aired August 27th. So like about 2 months, but still, that would have killed me in real time. Especially with how A Good Man Goes to War ends. Holy cow. Yeah, I also, another thought that I had is I really hope that sometime whoever is in charge of putting together the Target novelizations of the new episodes, I really need somebody to convince Stephen Moffat to do a novel adaptation of Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead, because I would be fascinated to see how he kind of works stuff in now that he himself also knows how everything works out in the end. But yeah, watching season 6 in 24 hours was a lot to take in, especially Wedding of River Song is a good episode, but man, is that one of the weirder cold openings that Doctor Who has ever done. Like, I remember watching it and I'm like, what? I'm like, even for Doctor Who, what on earth, kind of thing. Even if you just take the stuff that she was in the TV series, she is such a complex character. She has so much going on in her life. And then you add in the Big Finish stuff, you add in some of the comic stuff, some of the novels. Like she is definitely one of the cooler characters that Doctor Who has done. I would love it if one of the spin-offs that they do with Disney money is River Song. Because I'm kind of wondering if it's one that they're considering, because there hasn't been a new Diary of River Song audio, I want to say, in at least a year.
I mean, maybe. It will also, I think, be dependent on Alex Kingston's availability, unless they decide to recast it for longevity.
Which they could never do, I'm sure. Okay, no one did. I forgot that one came out this year. I just haven't listened to it yet. Yeah, they had a 4-part series 11. So they've done 11 box sets of River Song just on her own. She's been in other stuff too. But yeah, they had a 4-part story called Friend of the Family that came out earlier this year. I think it came out back in January. There hasn't been any news about another box set yet, so hopefully soon.
Now, in regards to the Big Finish stuff, she's had interactions with a number of doctors in the past, from what I know, but you're going to have to go into the detail on that in regards to how she interacts with the doctors without actually interacting with the doctors.
So it depends on the story. For example, her first box set sees her meet the 8th Doctor, but they never meet face to face. They're basically over the phone, as she's kind of walking him through how to essentially disarm a planet-killing bomb, but she puts a filter on it so that he doesn't recognize her voice, later on or whatever. In other episodes, it's that she erases his memory, either with her hallucinogenic lipstick or tea even, I think she uses. If I'm remembering correctly, the episode where she meets the 7th Doctor is the one where she goes to kiss him. He's like, "What the heck are you doing?" kind of thing. And so she makes him tea and erases his memory that way. That, or the timelines, reset. My favorite series that they've done is Series 3, which came out in 2018. And the timelines kind of get a little bit messed up. So by the end of it, the 5th Doctor doesn't remember. Series 4 is a lot of fun because the timelines go super wrong to the point where the 4th Doctor knows exactly who River is.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, he knows exactly who she is. And she's all panicked. And it's so much fun because she's like, "I'm Romana." And he's like, "No, you're not. You're my wife." And she's like, "What?" But again, by the end of the episode, the timelines get put back in place and everything is fine again. I know I haven't listened to any of the Doom Coalition or other series that she's a part of, but I know in Doom Coalition it has the 8th Doctor, but she's got she's disguised herself as a nun. That's on one of the covers. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. And then she has little mentions of seeing other doctors and different things. For example, for the 10 River series, obviously she's fine to know 10. There is a bit in one of the episodes where she's trying to get 10 to meet her to get help for something, but he keeps refusing to. And there's this whole sequence that's so funny about she keeps sending him messages, but then they wind up going to the wrong doctor, and she eventually gets the 5th Doctor to show up to help, but she again essentially has to drug him and wipe his memory of what has gone on. So she does that a lot, which is maybe not the healthiest thing. But
so how does she handle that with 10? Because her first interaction with 10 is when she dies. So I would think that he would have to have his memory wiped also.
Well, so it's just 10 later on, post season 4, 10.
Oh, I gotcha. So they're expanding on the points beyond Science in the Library. Gotcha.
Yeah. Because for the most part, most of the 10th Doctor stuff that Big Finish has done, apart from recently, has all been kind of contained to his series. The first box set of series that they did was with Donna in season 4, and then with Rose in season 2, and then Donna in season 4 again. But Dalek Universe and 10th Doctor and River Song are all set, post season 4. But yeah, it's really sweet because the first episode of 10th Doctor and River Song is called Expiry Dating. It's by James Goss. The format of it is essentially, like I said, them writing letters and messages back and forth to each other, and kind of spoilers, but it's been out for a while. But it's very sweet because in the end, it's revealed that the reason why River has been trying to get his attention and get him to, come help her do this archaeology thing is not because she's out for the money. It's not because she's out to make a name for herself, but she wanted to get his attention to get him to go out and do stuff after losing Donna. Because she was trying to help him, go out into the universe again, even though he just lost his best friend. So she's just trying to help, which I think is very sweet.
I always thought it was sweet, but messed up, where she's like, Doctor, don't be alone. But then she'd take off like, but don't stay with me. Yeah.
She's like, don't be alone, but also like, I know I'm not the best person for you to be around, so I'll stay around for a while, but
go pick up another stray.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, to be fair to her, she had also just lost her parents too, so she was like a little, messed up herself. Though it is kind of sweet. There's a book that came out a few years ago called The Ruby's Curse, which Alex Kingston co-wrote. Yeah, so it's written as a Melody Malone mystery. Oh, Jacqueline Rayner was also one of the writers on that book. But it's very nice because it kind of bounces back and forth between River stuff and Melody Malone stuff, but in the book it is revealed that she is able to go and visit her parents, which I'm very happy about. It's very nice. Yeah.
I know this isn't focused specifically on River, but it's part of her story and the pawns. As far as Post Angels Take Manhattan, there is a short that they put out called Doctor Who PS. It was written by Chris Chibnall, and it is the most like you get emotional watching this, because it's basically a letter to Rory's dad telling him that this is what happened, that they're okay, and explaining their life. And it's really touching, and it's not live action. It's kind of got like this like sketch animated type thing, because it wasn't a full production. It's just a short, but it is really good. And if you haven't watched it or seen it or heard of it, it's on YouTube, BBC's channel still, called Doctor Who PS, and it was after Angels Take Manhattan. It was a really nice thing to see.
Yeah, I remember seeing that, just my heart kind of thing, Amy and Rory adopting a little boy and all that. It's just so sweet. Yeah, I didn't know that Chris Chibnall wrote that, though. That's really sweet. I didn't know that.
Yeah, he did, and it was,
in series 3 of Diary of River Song, as well as in addition to River and the Fifth Doctor having a bunch of adventures, it's also very focused on River's family, because it's revealed that Madame Kovorian grew other clones from River's DNA. And so she has brothers and sisters.
Interesting.
I think she makes a comment in the episode too that she's never going to tell Amy and Rory about it, because just by the time she finds out about them, it's kind of devolved into chaos, because it's after Demon's Run, and so it's a whole thing, and a bunch of them are basically in a cult, which is unfortunate, led by one of the elder siblings of it. It's a really interesting look. Like, I love the idea. It's heartbreaking, but I love the idea that River has these siblings out there, especially with how the box set ends, where essentially, the first story is kind of about this kind of offshoot of her siblings that escaped, but, they have no memory of anything. And so they wind up in this really awful situation, and all but one of them dies. But then she goes on adventures with, the Fifth Doctor and this character called Brooke, who winds up being one of her siblings. But the box set ends with the remaining siblings, her sisters, one of whom is played by the same actress who plays Mel's in Let's Kill Hitler, which is really sweet. Essentially winds up, trapping Madame Kovorian, and they're basically breaking their own programming, and they're going to eventually be able to get away. And it's a series 3 of Diary of River Song, like I keep saying, is one of my favorites, and I highly recommend it to anybody who has not listened to it yet. They do some really interesting concepts with River, especially her siblings.
Yeah, one thing that is different now, or it takes a little bit of mind bending to, I guess, accept things, is so River was created because she was conceived in the time vortex, and then Time Lords were supposed to have been created because of their overexposure to the time vortex, but now the Doctor is a timeless child from another dimension, and we don't know what their origin is, and the Time Lords just extracted or extrapolated that gene or ability from the Doctor. So it kind of makes you wonder, like, where everything goes now. It's not specifically with River, but with Time Lords in general, because that seems to be like I'm not sure if that's still going to be the same origin or not.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it could be very easily, both the Doctor, the Timeless Child, the awful experimentation that Tectoeon did on that child, and exposure to the time vortex. I mean, Rassilon being the absolute awful butt of a person that he is. There's all sorts of weird things. Like I think there's probably just a lot of different variations on that. I mean, there's even like a whole thing where there were vampires on Gallifrey at one point too, and that was part of the Time Lord creation mythos.
I mean,
Big Finish has done some weird things over the years. I love that, but yeah, when you got vampires talking to Lord Rassilon as he's creating Time Lords, I'm like, what happened here?
I mean, we also have the Doctor being half human on his mother's side, which we kind of wash over later too.
Yes.
So I don't know if we're going to wash over some of that stuff or not. But
sure. I mean, yeah, I think it's, as much as sometimes it frustrates me to not have like definitive answers, I think it's also fun to just be like, you can take whatever parts of canon you want and whatever, kind of thing. There's definitely part of me that wishes that the Timeless Child story had more of an impact than it did. If it's something that RTD wants to run with, I'm sure he can. I don't want to say improve upon it, because it is a very good story, even if it wasn't my cup of tea. But like, RTD could definitely make that sadder if he wanted to.
It made me wonder if maybe the Doctor just came from Pete's world.
Oh, yeah, because they don't have a doctor. Yeah,
they don't have a doctor. They have a Meta Crisis Doctor now.
They do.
Yes. Who may or may not be dead, depending on how old they are.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's also multiple points of canon for that character too, and I got into a little bit of a fight on the TARDIS wiki about the Meta Crisis Doctor. That's who I am as a person. A book came out that gave him a name, and just the characterization was so horrendous in this book for this character, and Rose too, that I was just like, oh. No, somebody decided to give him the name Corin, and in the story that comes from, they talk about how Rose talks about how it's like naming a dog. What? Anyway, I could go on a whole rant, but I won't, because we're talking about River Song.
We're talking about River Song.
We're talking about River Song.
And going back to talking about River Song. Speaking of shorts, I know I talked about the Chibnall one with the Ponds and PS. There were a number of shorts that came out about interactions, kind of like date nights of Eleven and the River and the River. The River. 11 and River.
I mean, that's how most other Time Lords. I mean, you've got the Doctor, you've got the General, the Master.
The Master, the River.
The River. The Archaeologist.
They were pretty fun. There was one that I don't know if BBC has up still or not, because every time I remember it, I try looking for it, and it's always difficult to find. There was one specific one where they allude to going to, was it the Towers of Darillium?
Darillium, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they allude to that and then never go, and then at that point, when you watch it, you would think that that's the ending they gave for River. Thankfully, they went into really like living that out with the 12th Doctor, but I don't even know if that's still up. I just remember it being like a fun, that one being like a fun one. I think there were like two Doctors or two Rivers rotating in and out of the TARDIS.
I remember, I know. They keep taking them down. I'm like, can you make them available somewhere officially then? Because these, like the Children in Need specials and the little like mini web series stuff I love, but yeah, they really like taking that stuff down.
I think this one, if they did take it down, I want to say it was for like the continuity, because at the time they made you feel like they were going to Darillium, them two, but that would allude to her immediately dying after that. Okay, it was called Date Night. That was the name of the short where they were supposed to be going to Darillium. But I don't see it on BBC. I found it on some random YouTuber channel. And I think they removed it for continuity. That's my assumption.
I'm not sure that they've got any of those shorts up on the BBC or Doctor Who YouTube channels. It's usually like some random person has uploaded them from like Children in Need or from the DVDs. But there is a line that she has in there. She says, "Oh, well, that would explain why you kept canceling coming here. Do you remember that time when there were two of you? Because I want you to know that this is, it's kind of one of her little, like, she's trying to like say something as they're standing in front of the towers, but yeah."
I'm really glad we had the interaction, speaking of standing in front of the towers, that we did get to see River with 12 together. That was one thing I did want before his exit, Capaldi, and we got it.
I am waiting for Big Finish to convince Peter Capaldi to come back as the Doctor, though, because I need like 10 million box sets of River and the 12th Doctor on Beryllium for those 24 years. I doubt that they stayed on Beryllium the entire time, but I would like that box set.
Which leads me into a segment that we talked about that we were thinking about doing is Doctor Who spin-offs.
Yes.
I have, and I know this isn't fair to River, but it has to do with River, 12, and Beryllium. I would love a short or a little mini-series of 12 and River on Beryllium, but the spin-off isn't about 12 and River. It's about Nardole taking the TARDIS off on his own adventures and doing whatever he wants while the Doctor and River are spending time together.
I'd love that.
As he can pilot the TARDIS and he knows what he's doing, I would just love to see Nardole going around doing his own thing without River and the Doctor ever knowing.
That'd be so much fun. It'd be even funnier if you kind of had like this kind of like Scooby-Doo-ish almost thing of like them, of like Nardole and 12 and River like both trying to use the TARDIS, but also both like trying not to be caught by the other party.
That would be funny.
Nardole sneaks off and then he brings it right back, and then he's like, and you see him looking around, and you see 12 and River like sneaking into the TARDIS so they can go off and do something too, even though they're supposed to stay there, kind of thing.
It's like, Nardole, did I hear the cloister bells? No. What you talk about?
No. Especially because you got to get to the story somehow of how Nardole got his entire body back, and he's not stuck in that giant suit anymore with the other guy whose name I don't remember now.
I don't remember either.
Whoever he was.
He's unimportant. Whatever his name is, he's unimportant now.
Ramon. There we go.
Ramon? Oh no, I'm thinking of the other guy.
Yeah, the other guy that was in the suit with Nardole.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the main dude, because there was three of them, wasn't it? It was Nardole, Ramon, and the other dude.
King Hydroflax, yeah. But the suit got rid of King Hydroflax's head, and then he cut off Nardole and Ramon's to get information on River. Because Doctor Who, it's a family, it's a kid show. Let's cut everybody off. Because that's fun.
I need your help reminding me. What was the name of the ship? The shape-changing time machine ship. The one that posed as 11 dying with the little people inside.
The Tessellect. Tesselecta. There we go.
Tesselecta?
Tesselecta. Designated Justice Department Vehicle 6018 was a humanoid starship / time machine, similar to an android. According to Doctor Who TARDIS Wiki.
Stephen Moffat's quote about like people picking apart Doctor Who and saying like, this doesn't work and this doesn't work and this doesn't work. But when he had a time machine that can change shape with tiny people inside, turn into a man and materialize a motorcycle under him so he could chase people, no one questioned that.
Yes. The Tesla. I had almost forgotten about that too.
With the little jellyfish security drones.
Yes, the look creepy. Yeah, yeah, because those were slightly. It's weird. The couple things in Doctor Who that I'm like, that is genuinely terrifying, and that's one of them.
One part that was fun, I guess you would call it terrifying. I don't know. It was from that Let's Kill Hitler episode. Is after River is kind of freshly regenerated, and then she jumps out. I think she jumped out of a window, and then she released all her like regeneration energy onto the people, onto the soldiers to get them away. Like, I was like, damn, okay.
Yeah. watching her kind of like just start to be River, especially when you see the look on all their faces, like, oh no, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the scene where where Amy asks the Tesselecta, which is to show her River's song, and it morphs into River, and River's standing right there. Just it's kind, again, I have Spider-Man on the brain. It's like it's such an interesting concept to take the idea of like, what if you knew too much about your own future?
Which was why the Doctor was not allowed to look at the diary.
Yes, exactly.
So I have a question. As a cosplayer who does cosplay River a lot, what are your favorite top 3 outfits that River has?
Ooh, this is not the screen accurate version of this because it is expensive. So I just made a version of it for myself, but it's a very comfortable one.
Oh, you made that one?
I did make this one. Yes,
it looks really good.
Thank you. Yeah, the actual one has like all sorts of weird pockets and zippers and cords and stuff. It's a whole thing. I really like this. When I first started cosplaying, her astronaut outfit in Science of the Library Forest of the Dead was one of my dream cosplays, and I was so happy when I finally got to make that. It is literal pain in the neck to wear, as I have said before, but I love that costume, and I love, that's the costume that I wore to get my picture with David Tennant, because it's, again, one of my favorite episodes. I really, really, really love her dresses from the Husbands of River song, though, especially the red one with like the feathers.
Oh yeah,
and even her like one with the silver
the black with the sparklies on
Yeah.
top. Yeah.
Even her like just kind of adventure outfit in that episode is really cool too.
With her sonic trowel.
One on-screen one that I would have loved to see on screen, and like part of me would like to just have a crack at designing and making, is one of the 10th Doctor and River episodes is set in Elizabethan England, and she like, of course, all you kind of really see on the cover is like her in that kind of like collar kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But she does like go all out and like wear the Elizabethan garb when they're investigating, and it's so funny because like she's like, boost me up so I can get in the window, and he's like, not in that dress, are you kidding me? And he's like, why can't I get on your shoulders and climb in the window? She's like, because my hair will get messed up.
Now, I have to ask you what your opinions are on what me and a couple of my friends have called the tamale dress.
Oh, yeah. I get what they were going for, because at that point she was supposed to be, stuck in the library, and she's kind of confined within a book or whatever. So I get what they were going for, but I feel like it could have been executed slightly better. Yeah, that's what I'll say. We go with that. I get what they were going for, but maybe it could have done. I would have been really loved to see if it, instead of like the pages of her diary inspired that dress, it would have been, I think, even if she had just had like kind of maybe like a blue, because she's kind of got that kind of that the thing on top of it. Like if that had been blue, I think that would have maybe tied it together a little bit nicer, because then it would have been kind of more obvious that the look was inspired by the diary. But but also she's a hologram. She can wear whatever she wants, and that's what she chose.
She wants.
No, not River. Are you kidding? You kidding?
For that episode, though, I did especially like the interaction between her and Clara, and specifically Clara being like put in her place by River.
Your wife?
Yeah.
I thought Professor Song was a man.
That actually would be something kind of cool, is another Doctor Who spin-off idea. Obviously, Clara's out there doing her own thing, but if Clara gained access to the database, and her and River, via like Avatar or whatever, either went on adventures, or as Clara was doing something, River was kind of like the woman in the chair, like giving her details on like how to do things and what's going on.
I'm kind of behind on some of my Big Finish stuff, but I know they did do one story with River in the library database. I just haven't listened to it yet. I haven't listened to it, but I remember when they were doing stuff about it coming out, they were talking about like, oh, this could definitely, become its own spin-off kind of thing. I just haven't listened to it yet, so I can't comment on what spinoff they're talking about. It's cool. I like that they kind of have a bunch of different areas of her life that they can explore within the audios, because they can jump around all they want. Now I want to design a better version of that dress, because now I'm thinking about it. Oh, well. But yeah, she's got cool outfits. Especially the green dress does seem to be what most people cosplay.
I see the green dress a decent amount, and then probably just because it's so recognizable is I don't remember the name of the dress, but the one that is in Let's Kill Hitler that Mel is in and then River's in afterwards.
For whatever reason, it's a very affordable buy on eBay.
Yeah, I do see it around sometimes still too. I forgot the name of that one also, but I know it still circulates.
It's in my closet somewhere, but I do have that one because it was only like, I want to say $30 or $40 on eBay, and that was only like a couple of years ago. So yeah,
for a green accurate item,
made a ton of them or what happened. I mean, it was only $30 or $40, and the guy had like 20 of them available or something ridiculous like that. So I don't know what
ridiculous
happened.
And weird. Yeah, it's like they fell off a truck and he sold them years later.
Something. I don't know. I don't know.
I was thinking Jedi River in like that outfit inspired, but then it went into something else because she's got the satchels and so forth, and just it evolved into Smuggler River.
Yeah. I am shocked that Alex Kingston hasn't shown up in Star Wars yet somewhere. Like, surely she would be great in Star Wars. She'd be amazing in Star Wars. But yeah, 15 Years of River song. And she's done, I mean, there's 11 series of just focused on her audio adventures. Besides that, the 10th Doctor River song. She was in one of the Lives of Captain Jack series. She was in Doom Coalition. I remember the Eternity Clock, which is a video game, had some fun facts about River in there. So she's got her audio series, Doom Coalition. Oh, I forgot that she was in some of the unit stuff, which is really good because she gets to play an evil version of herself, which is always entertaining. The 8th of March series, which is Big Finish's series that they do for International Women's Day. I believe in that episode, I haven't listened to it yet, but I believe in that episode, Romana and Leela meet, which is really sweet. So at the time, River is pretending to be Romana, so it's a little bit of a problem because Leela knows Romana very well.
Is that the same series where the 4th Doctor knows who she is? Or is that a different one?
That's a different one. Yeah. 4 in that series is traveling by himself at that point. She was in Dalek Universe, which was really good, and she was in Peladon, which is its own. There's Big Finish does like spin-offs on top of spin-offs. Like if you can think of a niche corner, especially of anything 10th Doctor and back and Doctor Who, they probably have an audio series or at least an episode of it. Oh, and she was in a series of one of the episodes of Missy, which was so much fun, having River and Missy bouncing off of each other. Tiny weird little plug. I've done a lot of TikToks to these audios. If anybody wants to check them out, and I am more than happy to give recommendations for where to start with River Song on audio. So.
I'm kind of surprised they haven't explored her in the comics as much.
She's been in the comics a little bit. I think she was in...
As far as like her own series.
Yeah, right? She should.
I mean, Missy had hers. When we were talking about their interaction between her and Missy, that's what made me think that, Missy had her section or her series. I'm surprised River hasn't had hers.
Yeah, that's very true, especially because Missy's had her own comic and her own audio series, so it's not like they couldn't do that with River, too. So, I think they should. I think they definitely should. I would love it, because I know Dan Slott, he's doing the
10th Doctor.
The 10th Doctor and Martha. Yeah. I think he said that there's another one that he's doing that's coming out next year as well, but if they keep giving him ones, I'm like, can we do 10 in River or 12 in River, please? That'd be fun. I just love that River is such a legacy character in Doctor Who, even though she's only been in the show or been a thing in the show for the past 15 years out of the past 60, kind of thing. She's such an easy character to drop in anywhere in Doctor Who because she is a time traveler, because she is an archaeologist. And I love that that's a thing. that is slightly borrowed, a character called Bernice Summerfield in Doctor Who audios. It was one of the earliest Big Finish audios that they did for Doctor Who, was creating this character called Bernice Summerfield, who is a time-traveling archaeologist. And it's very sweet because actually in one of their... Big Finish did a series for their 20th anniversary of producing Doctor Who audio stories, and one of the stories is River and Bernice Summerfield meeting, which is very sweet and kind of fun, especially when the Eighth Doctor is there, like, what is going on? Kind of thing.
They're like, we have so much in common. Yeah. Do we just become best friends?
You would expect, because I think everybody was like, oh, they're going to fight. And they're like, no, they're just best friends. River had her as a teacher. It's fun, kind of thing. I love that you can drop her anywhere in Doctor Who. And it makes sense. There's even, there's a couple stories in the audios that I'd forgotten about until I was looking at the list, where she just she doesn't directly interact with the Doctor, but she kind of has her own story kind of parallel to whatever's going on in an episode kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just fun. I mean, River and Barbara meeting was a lot of fun. River and Kate Stewart meeting, and, she's just such a fun character that can go anywhere, do anything, but not have... I mean, she definitely has her own baggage. She's been through a lot. She was born and raised and conditioned to kill the Doctor, and she wound up falling in love with the Doctor. You could probably do a very interesting series about the psychology of that.
It's the classic lovers, enemies to lovers story, or
his best friend's child to murderer to lover. Yeah, it's Doctor Who. It's going to be weird. But I just love that she's become such a huge character in the show. I know there's a lot of people out there who don't like her for one reason or another, but overall, I think she's just a fun character. And I love that they keep doing stories with her, and I hope they keep doing stories with her.
Yeah, she's a fun character. She's a strong character. She's a smart character. She's a resourceful and witty character. She does bring, I think, a lot to the show. Anyone who has a problem with her, if it's not your thing, it's not your thing. But she's not in the show anymore. So
yeah.
So
for now,
don't admit. For now, who knows? She might come back at some point and erase the Doctor's memory again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that
would be interesting to see River interact with Ncuti. But I feel like that would be a database River.
Maybe, yeah. Or even if she, I keep wondering, I'm like, is there any possible way they stick her in the 60th? So I would love more on-screen Tennant River, even though that's not 10, that's 14. But more on-screen David Tennant and Alex Kingston would be a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, I guess I could go with that because, I don't know, maybe she wouldn't know the difference. Okay, no, I do like the idea of like maybe River going back and checking in on Donna after, the memory wipe that he did on her, just to make sure that she's okay.
Yeah,
because he can't. I do like that idea. Maybe they could stick her in somewhere. Yeah. Who knows?
So I was hoping that it was in the stack of books that was right over here, but I don't know if it was just something that he did for the book, or if it was something that they had planned on doing and weren't able to shoot. But in the Day of the Doctor novelization, River is the one that winds up telling Ten where to find the Zygons in time and space, which I thought was interesting. Like, again, I don't know if that was something that they were planning on shooting and they couldn't get Alex Kingston, or it just didn't work out for one reason or the other. But I'm like, she's kind of been involved in the 50th. It'd be great to have her actually involved in the 60th. So I would love it if she was one of those surprise, because I keep feeling like they did such specific things in public for filming, and that's kind of mostly what they keep showing in the trailers, is the stuff that was filmed in public. Mm-hmm. I just feel like I don't want to get my hopes up for anybody in particular, but I do feel like there is decent potential for there to be characters that we don't know about showing up in the 60th. Maybe River Song's one of them. That'd be a lot of fun.
Maybe. I mean, even at the end of 13's run, we had a bunch of cameos that nobody knew about until the air dates also. So, I mean, it is a possibility. Anything could happen, really.
Yeah. I just hope they can keep the secrets for the next few months, because sometimes people can't keep their mouths shut.
I do like, it doesn't necessarily have to be Ncuti, but like a future Doctor at some point. I think it would be kind of cool if, like, the Doctor was just not necessarily as much as like the 12th Doctor was dealing with identity. Am I a good man? And so forth. But, the Doctor changes with every regeneration. They're having new discoveries. They're discovering themselves over and over again. and then maybe at some point just having the Doctor trying to discover themselves and being a little lost and turning to River, database River, and just kind of talking with her through like, I don't, what should I do? I'm going through this, and River still counseling the Doctor in her afterlife.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be sweet. I know. I remember when the first couple of stills were coming out for The Husbands of River Song, I remember a theory going around that, I think everybody kind of expected that the gift that the Doctor was going to give her was the sonic screwdriver. But I remember seeing a theory go around like, oh, what if the gift that he gives her is another diary? And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. I'm like, that would have been so sweet, because they make such a thing of like, oh, she's almost out of space. It's the sonic.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I love River. I hope we see her, or at least hear from her in some capacity, audios, comics, books, whatever. She's a very popular character. I don't think she's going anywhere anytime soon. So
I'm sure she'll pop up somewhere,
yes.
Somehow, sometime, some way, some form.
Yeah, for sure. Big Finish loves her, and it seems like Alex Kingston really loves doing Big Finish. So I'm sure we'll keep hearing from her when they've got time to do more.
I think Alex Kingston just loves River.
Yes, for sure.
Maybe we should go to a random TARDIS fact or Doctor Who fact from TARDIS Wiki.
Let me just go on River Song's Wikipedia page and find a fun fact. Of course, her biography section is miles long. How about this one? So, in The Eternity Clock, the video game, which I guess focuses on River Song and 11 and that kind of era of the show, in the pages of River Song's diary the player collects, there is an entry entitled An Unearthly Mess, which apparently occurs before the events of An Unearthly Child. In it, River recalls the first Doctor catching her snooping around I.M. Foreman's junkyard. When she heard a young woman calling for her grandfather, she took off. Her comment was, "That's a conversation I'm not yet ready for." River, she has so many... She's just met everybody at this point, especially if they're characters that Big Finish has done anything with, so...
Yeah, she's had a number of good one-liners.
Yep, she really does. Well, how about this for a random fun fact that I just know off the top of my head? River Song has met Jean-Luc Picard. Ed knows him very well.
Was that in the what was the name of that was that the crossover comic?
No, it was in one of the books. There is a story in one of the books. I can't remember what the name of the book is now. I think it's probably just called Diary of River Song. They did a couple of those books over the years where it's a collection of a couple different short stories with different characters. Like they did one for River, they've done one for Missy, there's one for the Master overall, there's one for Shielder. This, how it comes up is it is a story about the Autons. Basically, the Autons are trying to take over, but like somehow the process went wrong, and so all of the wax figures in this museum have been, the Autons have brought them to life, but they all think that they are who they are, look like, kind of thing. And River winds up befriending the Elvis Auton. And there's a bit where the Elvis Auton has to take the wig off, and he stuffs it in this pipe to kind of keep this cloud of gas from infecting everybody. And River is passed out, and the line is something like she like just kind of is like opening her eyes, and she sees a bald head, and she's like, Jean-Luc. I'm like, oh. Like River Song knows Jean-Luc Picard. I mean, they both have interest in archaeology. I mean, yes. Why not?
Well, I guess it's possible because there was a comic through IDW, I believe, called Star Trek Assimilation Squared that dealt with the Borg and the Cybermen, both combining, written by Scott Tipton, David Tipton, and J.K. Woodward, and it was really cool. It was focused on the 11th Doctor, the Pawns, and it also had the 4th Doctor and Star Trek the original series. Had a number of stuff in it, and it was a really, really cool, fun read. So I wonder if that's an expansion on that.
Maybe, yeah. I love crossovers. I wish more often that shows would be more chill about doing crossovers with other franchises, especially ones that aren't like directly owned by the same company.
Yeah.
But
licensing.
Who knows? Maybe we'll get some Doctor Who Star Wars crossovers. I mean, we're kind of getting one with David Tennant showing up in the Ahsoka series again, but voicing the droid.
I don't know if that's just a crossover or just an actor doing their job.
I mean, yes. No, I know. But I mean, there is a... Yes. I mean, there is a bit in that Brotherhood book where it talks about Professor Wang showing up at the Jedi Temple in an ancient blue box.
Yeah.
So, who knows? Maybe that's kind of a crossover. Or an Easter egg. I don't know. All right. So that's all for this episode of Temple of Geeks Who Review. We hope you enjoyed it. Please be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. You can also follow us on social media for more Doctor Who content. On Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram as @Temple of Geek. You can also visit templeofgeek.com for Doctor Who cosplay guides, episode reviews, news, and more. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, guys.